Good evening. This is Sunny Ray coming to you from Who Manifested This Shit, where we turn pain into power. I'm going to do a little review tonight on a strain called, a strain called Cognitiva. It is, let's see here, I have to get my glasses out here. It is 22.11% THCA, 0.04% CBD. It is, let's see if it says anything more about that. It is a sativa, and that's what I want to talk about tonight while I do my review, is the differences between indica, sativa, and hybrids. You hear a lot of talk about that, people referring to the different strains. Now, for those of you who are kind of new to hemp and its various strains, indica, they like to say indica. It has a very calming effect, and it also is one that they recommend for bedtime, evening use, to help with things like insomnia. My information today came from a lady named Dr. Jagmeet Sethi, a medical and internal specialist in Burlington, Ontario, Canada. And she was discussing the differences of the three. And so that's kind of where I got my information, which I already had knowledge of that. But just for fact checking, you can look her up. Anyway, a hybrid is a mixture of sativa and indica. Now let me tell you, sativa is the opposite of indica. Sativa is your strain that will give you energy, and it's uplifting, and it boosts your mood, you know. And so that's why they call it, they call it indica. That's where they get that term. Sativa, you remember, is the opposite. And then a hybrid is a mixture of the two. There are what they call sativa dominant, which would contain more sativa than indica, and vice versa, you know. So some are going to be indica dominant, and it just depends on the effects that you are trying to get. Now, my medical fact today, I was looking, I got some of my wires crossed, but one thing was, I got some information was out of the Cleveland Clinical Journal, and also there was a doctor that was discussing that the newer medical research has made the New England Journal of Medicine, which is a very reliable source. And to make the New England Medical Journal, there's had to been some research done, and what they're finding, you know, is that yes, definitely medical marijuana helps with so many ailments. One of the things that the gentleman talked about in a short interview he done on the Today Show in Australia, he was saying how they did these test groups studies, and some were given placebo, some were given a low grade, and some were given a mid grade, or dosing, higher dosing of THC. And they inhaled the flower, you know, smoking in a joint or a pipe or whatever, and there was reports of instant pain relief from things like peripheral neuropathy, which comes from diabetes and all kinds of things. I was found to have neuropathy about 8 years ago in my feet. I would get up in the morning and it would feel like I was walking on crushed up glass. That is what led my doctor to doing some testing, and come to find out I had fibromyalgia. Now, what I was reading tonight didn't mention fibromyalgia as a cause of neuropathy, but I know from experience that it does affect, you do get neuropathy from having fibromyalgia. It affects the central nervous system. So some of the research is new and not completely updated on some of these things, but Anyway, yes, it does help. I also have neuropathy in my hands, so when I'm using uh, THCA products, I do have relief from the pain that neuropathy causes and the numbing and stuff, like your hands go to sleep and stay asleep. Same with your feet, kind of. Only I had that feeling in my feet when I would walk that not only were they asleep, but I was in a lot of pain. So the other thing that it talked about was that I read tonight, some research was on how well the effects are for gastrointestinal issues, nausea, vomiting, especially with cancer patients. Oh, and appetite stimulation. There are a lot of people out there with eating disorders, a lot of people out there taking chemotherapy, radiation, and those kind of things that they they suffer with a lot of nausea, vomiting, and that sort of thing, and loss of appetite. So, medical marijuana, THCA products are extremely good for helping those of you who are suffering with side effects from chemotherapy or that kind of thing, or anybody that's just suffering from gastrointestinal issues. I highly recommend it. I am trying to watch my time. So, as I said, I'm going to do a short review on Cognitiva, and it is a sativa, and it is nighttime, but it doesn't affect me as strongly as it does some people. So I can relax with a sativa. I think it depends. For me, I believe sativa it enhances the current mood you're in when you begin to smoke. So anyway, this that I bought of this strain called Cognitiva, I bought a bag of shakes. So let me see if I can show you what this looks like. It's really a really nice bag of shake. You can see there's some little buds in there. Yeah, some red hairs. There's a dark green with some light. Yeah, this little bud here, this little guy, if you can tell, he's got some red hairs. If I can get him in focus here for you. I think maybe right about there, you might be able to see. Get it up a little closer, maybe. Anyway, so that's what we got. Now, I have already rolled up what I was going to smoke and let you know about the taste and smell and the side effects. Okay, so apparently, excuse me, sorry, allergies are really bad, pollen count's really high, so I have a constantly drippy nose right now, but anyway, I do apologize. So back to our review of this great strain of Cognitiva. Now, I won't lie, I have tried this and I do like it. On the dry hit, there is like some citrus underlying citrusy taste, and there's also that ammonia taste and smell. Not real strong like some strains are, but you can smell it. So on the dry hit is basically the ammonia and citrus taste that I'm getting. So we put fire to it to activate our THCA. Yeah, so being lit, I taste a buttery kind of taste with the citrus on this, and I don't taste the ammonia so much now that I've lit it. I took it easy on that first one. I've had some breathing problems this week, and so have a lot of other people that I've talked to have said they've had some breathing issues. I'm not seeing any air quality alerts in my local weather, but excuse me, anyway, so I don't know, but anywho, so I am starting to feel a little heaviness. I took 2 puffs off of this. Sorry, a little smoke in my eye, so I wasn't, winking at anybody, but hey, why not? So, okay, this is really expanding in my lungs. And that third one, yeah, I feel the head buzz. And I'm feeling pain relief, runny nose. Anyway, yeah, this is nice. This is a very nice one. So that was about 4 or 5 puffs there. It's really, in my opinion, could be a one and done. But I have a high tolerance. So those of you who are dedicated smokers who smoke daily, it's probably going to take more than one for you to be done. But yeah, basically I haven't smoked a third of the joint, a quarter of the joint, just very little. You've seen it right here on camera. So anyway, yeah, I like this one. My brother LSDJ is working on his top 10 of the year so far, so I don't really want to say where I would place this yet, because I still have other things that I want to try. So hopefully you got a little education tonight, and I'll try to get a little bit better with my sources, but you should be able to fact check on the information that I gave you. Anyway, I'm at 12 minutes here in my video, and we are trying to keep it a little shorter, but I did want to kind of end with a little story. In a previous video, I talked about, I believe, how I went to rehab at the age of 15 years old, and 5 days before my graduation of rehab, it was a 6-week program for adolescents, I had a psychotic breakdown. I had never had one. I had never shown any signs of psychosis or anything like that, but at 15 going on 16, I had this psychotic breakdown. It happened at an AA meeting, and I stood up and called the speaker an effing liar. Well, not only was her story very similar to mine, in my twisted mind at the time, I thought she was telling my story, and so I stood up and, told her she was a liar, and a big, large man with a booming voice stood up and told me to shut the F up and sit down and keep my mouth shut. Well, it terrified me so badly that I ran into the ladies' room, where I crawled under the sinks in there and was back in a corner trying to protect my head. And all I remember was there was a lady squatted down in front of me, saying, with her hand out, saying, "Come on, grab my hand and let's get out of here. I'm a nurse. I can help you." So it took a little bit for her to build my trust, and so she got me out. Well, later that night, actually after they got me back from the AA meeting, they began giving me Valium to help calm me down. And the next morning, I was picked up by an ambulance, and man, did things start to really get crazy. Well, I looked at the sign from the gurney, the road signs ahead, and we were going the opposite direction of my home, and I started yelling at the ambulance driver, "You're going the wrong way." Well, they take me to this hospital, only I don't remember entering or anything like that. And the next thing you know, I'm in this large room, and my mother and stepfather were there, my stepmother and my dad were there, and they didn't have happy faces on. And they took me to this room, and this lady comes in, young lady, comes in a hospital gown, a football helmet, and a roll of masking tape. And she goes to the bed on the other side of this room where my stepmother is putting my clothes out of a duffel bag onto these shelves next to the bed. The lady comes in, she said, "My name is Jesus Christ," and she put the tape down the middle of the floor, and she said, "Don't cross that line or I'll kill you." Well, I was behind my stepmother, pulling clothes off the shelf as fast as I could, putting them in the bag. Well, I refused to sleep in there, and so the staff allowed me to, they wheeled my bed out into what they called the day room. I'd never been to a psych ward. All I knew about psych wards was what you seen in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So I was not prepared, had no idea this is where I was at, and gradually it started coming to me that things may be a little off. Wasn't sure why I was there, what was going on, but make a long story short, I spent 3 months gone away from home basically, and there was a lot of funny stories that I could tell you during that time frame, you know, being a 15-year-old girl with psychosis who was a little crazy anyway. So anyway, not dangerously crazy or anything, just kind of a little, you know, but anywho, so yeah, so after, well, they brought me homework, but I was so heavily medicated that the words actually melted down the page. They were so blurry, and they would move all across the page, and I kept thinking, how do they think I'm supposed to do this schoolwork? The letters won't hold still, they're blurry, and they are melting, and I can't make out what they're saying. I was not required to wear glasses, nor did I need them at the time, but I was on some very, very strong medications that were really strong, and so I was very, very medicated. But as a 15-year-old, I came out of there in the spring that year of 1983, I believe it was, and or 84, I'm not sure, but 83 or 84, I came out of there and I turned 16 years old. And I stayed clean that entire time. Oh, I went back and finished the 5 days of rehab before I went home from the psych ward. And when I went home, I was set up with a psychiatrist and medications and some different things. But I stayed clean until school started. And then I started smoking weed again, and in a few months, which turned out to be 1 year and 1 day after the first psychotic break, I had a second one. Between all this time, I kept trying to figure out why, what happened, what did I do, how did this happen to me? Well, I thought it was LSD usage, and so I stopped using LSD in 1983, and I've not touched it since. And so that's one way I turned pain into power, because let me tell you, it was very painful to go through some inhumane practices in the psych wards in the 80s, and to be away from my family and my friends, and then go back to school, and everybody avoided me and walked around me, and they were afraid. They didn't understand mental illness. It was very stigmatized. It still is stigmatized. There's still so much people aren't aware of it. We're so much further than we used to be. But anyway, yes. And so after the second breakdown, I stayed clean for almost 3 years, and I graduated high school. I started college. I went to college about 1 semester, and then I quit and began a job, working a job full-time at a factory, and then from there, I worked a couple of jobs here and there, and then I opened a cleaning business in my mid-20s. So I am at 19 minutes and 55 seconds, and I am going to end this video tonight. But I just wanted to give you an example of what we're talking about. The music is what I want to tie into it. My stepsister said when I came home the second time from the psych ward, she said, I've been listening to this song. It's called The Logical Song by Supertramp, and it reminds me of you. And if you get a chance to listen to it, listen to it. I've listened to it the last few days and just look back how far I've came and how I learned from those situations. And that was the beginning of me really learning how to turn pain into power. Thank you all. We love and support for your love and support. Keep coming back to our channel. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell. That'll notify you when we post new videos and new content. And you all have a great evening, and we will see you next time. Have a good night.